we're not going to get one account and then go on vacation. No, we're hard at work. We have a solid team. We're very motivated. We're going to continue progressing, and we will not stop until this becomes a household brand, at least on the Teonan side. And when we've conquered our territories in the retailers that we think are the best fit for us in North America, then we'll begin to look abroad, and the sky's the limit for us.
Welcome everyone, and thanks as always for tuning in. Today, for the first time, sitting down with a brand new public company in the functional beverage space, and joining me to talk about it today is CEO and Director Eric Ronsse. Eric, great to have you join me today, and I'm quite excited to learn about the company. How are things going today so far?
Likewise, thanks for having me. Things are well, and I'm very excited to explain what it is that we're up to at the Good Shroom Co.
Okay, so yeah, this is the Good Shroom Co, and you haven't even been public for a month yet. You haven't even hit the 1 month mark. So I think a good place to start would be just a high level overview of the company. Give us that overview, and then we'll dive a little bit into the details.
Absolutely. So the Good Shroom Co is a house of brands. So it is the house of brands, the parent company that owns the two brands that we operate, which are Teonan and Velada. I'm going to start by explaining quickly what the Teonan side of it. So Teonan is a line of functional mushroom beverage mixes that we make. We have 7 flavors. They are mixes that come in a pouch. You put in your spoon, you put it into a cup, you mix in warm or cold water, and you drink away the wellness beverage. So all of our beverages are certified organic, gluten-free, dairy-free, keto, paleo, all contain a dose of probiotics, but most importantly, and what is the common denominator amongst all of our flavors, is that they contain a dose of functional mushrooms. That's a custom formula of 6 mushrooms that we've chosen based on their immune support properties, as well as a variety of other benefits associated to them that we basically put throughout the mushrooms. Now, a common question we get is, do they taste like mushrooms? To which the answer is absolutely no mushroom taste. And that's because we use a dual extract of fruiting bodies only, specifically because they're very potent and there is no flavor. So you're getting the equivalent of 3 grams of dried mushrooms per serving, without any mushroom taste. So we are a delicious beverage first and foremost. They come in a variety of flavors, and in every single beverage you get your functional dose of mushrooms. Then on the Velada side, so we are as well at the core a cannabis company. We obtained our micro cannabis processing license in November of 2019. We are in the midst of obtaining our authorization from Health Canada to begin selling nationwide, only in Canada. And essentially what Velada is the formulas that we presently sell across North America in the mushroom brand Teonan that I just spoke to you about, except further fortified as a wellness beverage by adding a potent dose of CBD, so 30 milligrams of CBD per serving. And then in a second line of it, for just a variety of the flavors, we also do a 2-to-1 CBD to THC ratio, coming in at 4.5 milligrams of THC for 9 milligrams of CBD per serving. So nothing to get anybody overly high, but really more something to relax and calm you down from a wellness perspective, kind of tapping into a market that we believe has a lot of potential, that the data shows has a lot of potential, and that is kind of underserved at present. So that's essentially the strategy at Velada. Now, the Teonan brand, taking you back to the mushroom brand Teonan, we actually launched this product, or these products, I should say, in December of 2019, so a little over a year ago at this point. And we launched strictly direct to consumer. That's only online in the United States and in Canada. And we chose to omit to sell at retail or to start any sort of retail initiative because the goal at the time was go directly to the customer, obviously sell as much as possible, but more importantly, to begin, gather as much data and feedback from the customers as possible in order to drive changes to the brand, to the format, to the flavors, then come out with something that is what we call the Teonan 2.0 version, and push that out onto retail, relaunch onto direct to consumer online, our website, on Amazon, etc. And that's essentially what we've done. So we launched the Teonan 2.0 version in February of this year. And things have been slowly ramping up for us. So because it's a new brand, new formats of the same product, despite the fact that we have a customer base of more than 12,000 strong, you know, the fact that there's new ads, new formats, new products, you want to be kind of careful early on the e-commerce side of things and not overspend because there's very little traction, very little reviews at first on your products. And so we're just kind of stepping into that mark where we're comfortable with what we're seeing, the return on ad spend rates, the return on investment rates, all of this good stuff. And we like the metrics. And so now we're starting to increase the marketing budget. So we will see, at least on the online side, a spike in sales probably sometime in the July, August range. And we have just begun our retail initiative. We're talking to a variety of distributors, brokers, and retail shops alike in Canada and in the US. And we expect some of those to come into fruition in the next few quarters. So tons of exciting stuff going on over here, John.
It sounds like it. I want to step back just momentarily and maybe talk about what led you to focus on, mushrooms in the functional beverage space to begin with. Like, what trends or data were you seeing that says this is a great opportunity? We need to, come in and try and capture this market. And I'll bring up one of the slides from your presentation if you need to refer to it, Eric.
Sure. I mean, at the core, this entire thing started off when we were formulating cannabis beverages, and we were coming together with what I would call the ultimate wellness beverage, which contained functional mushrooms. It was certified organic. It had all the attributes that the Teonan brand presently has, but also had CBD. But at the time, we didn't have a cannabis license. And so when we had formulated these products, I looked at it and said, well, let's not wait for Health Canada to come by with our authorization or our license or whatever. We have a fantastic product. We can come out with this on the market. But at the core, this entire thing came together because I used to supplement with functional mushrooms, specifically lion's mane and reishi, for their neuroplasticity effects, for their sort of cognitive enhancing effects. And the only good supplements that I could find, really tasted like mushrooms. And I didn't like that at all. I would kind of mix in some mushroom powder, chug it down, make a weird face after having chugged it, and then on I would go. And so I thought to myself, there's got to be a better way to do this. So I started mixing it in with coffee, mixing it in with turmeric, adding all kinds of other stuff. And there was the sort of first formula of what is today Teonan. And so that's how we sort of embarked on this journey. My partner and I, who's our chief marketing officer today, kind of came together and put together a few formulas, tested it out. Liked what we tasted. Everybody else was enjoying it. And, we put our expertise together on my end, the logistics and the business management part of it, and on his end, the marketing part of it. So, as you can see, obviously, it's a very colorful brand, one that stands out, one that's different. And, of course, we did a lot of market research to see, well, is this viable, or are we just the weirdos consuming functional products? And the answer was unequivocally, this is a market that's growing with a compounded annual growth rate of, if you want to refer back to that one slide, I believe it's in double. Yeah. So 9.38%, and that's from one source. There's other sources that can give you CAGRs that are slightly higher than that. And so it was a no-brainer from that sense. Then it just comes down to the executional capabilities of the team. And so, that's what we set off to do, and we're doing it.
Okay. So you feel then it's fair to say that this is more of an emerging marketplace, and there's lots of room for a smaller company like you to break into the space and make a big impact and grow quite substantially.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We do have competition out there, but I think in this instance, competition is good because we're not necessarily fighting over the same customers. Like, this is a pie that is increasing month over month. What we're doing is converting your average coffee drinker into a mushroom coffee drinker. So the main sort of raison d'etre around the brand and around the company on the Teonan side is really, if you're going to drink a coffee every morning, why not make it a coffee that's functional, that has benefits for yourself, that tastes good, so you would drink it anyway. Might as well have it be probiotic and contain a dose of functional mushrooms. So what we're seeing is a lot of people that are curious about mushrooms coming onto the site, sending us questions, or not saying anything at all and just ordering the product, which is great. But essentially, the pie is increasing. And though we are seeing some of our competitors' customers come to us based on flavor, based on format, based on price, I welcome competition. And I think it's a great thing because this is an industry that is increasing. I think that the functional beverage industry as a whole, and a company like us, we have the potential to really disrupt the coffee and tea space and really make some noise in the process.
Okay. So you've already touched on a little bit, but I would like to get maybe a little bit more into detail. What is the really differentiating your product from the competition? And I'll bring up the slide here. I just want to say I think your branding looks really great. It's, you've got some really great branding here. But what do you think differentiates you Teonan, from some of the other competitors out there?
Price, first and foremost. So one of my main goals in all of this, set aside the few attributes that I'll go into a little more detail in a minute, price being number one. So if you want to be able to convert as many customers as possible, you need to offer a product that's at a price point that's relatively similar to what they're consuming now. So people are willing to pay an increased price for a functional beverage. But if you really want to get to the mass market, you need to be able to offer something at a viable price. So if you compare our product with other products on the market, especially on the e-commerce side, what you'll find is that we're on the lower end. But that's relative. We're still highly priced, and it's still considered a sort of luxury good. So my goal as we ramp up and we scale is really going to be to drive that price a little bit lower, as I believe that that's going to be able to bring in more people. Secondly, it's the fact that we have all the attributes necessary, organic certified, which in this industry is table stakes. But on top of it, we have no fillers, no anti-caking agents. It's really a pure natural product, and that's what people go for. That's what people like. And then it comes down to the mushrooms. So we use a dual extract of fruiting bodies only. So people who are in the know about the mushroom industry, and some of which are like to get educated, some of our customers ask a lot of questions about this, is the fruiting body versus the mycelium. So we use only the part of the mushroom that contains the beneficial aspects and the attributes of the mushrooms. Then we use a dual extract. So, quick extraction lesson here. When you do a dual extract, that means that you're extracting part of the mushroom in ethanol and the other part in water. And the reason for that is that some of those molecules bind to water and the other molecules bind to fats. And so they're extracted both of those ways in order to really get all of the mushroom possible, as much as the mushroom possible. And then that's what's added into the beverage. Then we also use 300 milligrams of that product, which equals 3 grams of dried mushroom body. This is at least 3 times our nearest competitor with no mushroom flavor at all. So the product is superior and the price is slightly better. I think that those two things combined are a winning formula. And then, of course, there's the whole branding aspect. You want to have great customer service. That's, table stakes these days. You need to have people who are there to answer your questions. It needs to be a human behind the computer who cares about this customer the same way you walk into a retail shop and somebody's looking for a salesman to explain to them what's going on, et cetera. So the brand itself is very different. It's a bit funky. It's pseudo psychedelic. And I think that that's something that stands out, not just on a retail shelf, but it's sort of a breath of fresh air to a lot of competitors who, have a very monotonous type of feel amongst each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does have a cool kind of funky feel to it. The brand, I've, before the interview, I've kind of looked on the website and stuff, and you've nailed that feel to it, and I can see how that would very much appeal to kind of the demographic that you're looking to target for sure.
Thanks, John. Appreciate that. We worked hard to bring it here, and that's actually some of the main feedback that we're getting is how much people love the brand and how much people love the product.
Mm-hmm. So the six mushrooms that you chose, is there a fairly wide consensus on those 6 being all like very important key health, providing health benefits to you when you drink them?
Absolutely. So the 6 mushrooms that we chose, we chose for very specific reasons. We could have chosen a dozen mushrooms. So part of it is because there's a lot of research to back it up. Now, we don't make any direct claims. However, the mushrooms do have a huge association, especially with the growth of the mushroom space. People are becoming wiser and becoming pseudo connoisseurs of mushrooms. So we're seeing a lot of people come in onto the website specifically because they're looking for a lion's mane beverage. Others are looking for a turkey tail beverage, and others might be looking for a reishi beverage. So one of the things as well that we changed from the first iteration of the products and brand to what we're doing now is that we had at the time only 5 products, and we only put 2 mushrooms, and they were all different mushrooms throughout every single product. And what we found is that people were coming onto the site because they were looking for a lion's mane or a reishi, and that limited their options because we only had lion's mane in our coffee, and the reishi was only found in our matcha. So they were, some customers just wouldn't convert because they'd say, well, I'm going to go get my lion's mane elsewhere. I don't drink matcha, and you guys don't have it in the coffee that I would drink. So what we did is we put the exact same formula of mushrooms throughout each. So the idea is it's easy. It's simple. You show up on the website. If you're a coffee drinker, you go for the coffee. If you like hot chocolate, you go for that. If you want a golden milk latte, you have our curcumama, which is our turmeric-based beverage. And so we're seeing a lot of ease in conversion and a lot of people that are very satisfied with what they're purchasing.
Okay. So, and you mentioned you started selling this, I believe, December 2019. So like you said, it's been a little bit over a year, almost a year and a half now. You're calling this version 2.0. So are you pretty confident that the product that you've developed and the changes you've made to everything are those changes going to be relatively permanent? Like, is the product that you're selling today, are you feel confident that it will kind of stay as is going forward, and this will be without too many modifications, or is it still sort of a work in progress?
No, I would say, look, from a branding perspective, it's always a work in progress. I would say that the formulas of the product are here to stay. And that's purely based on the feedback that we're getting from customers, the amount of return customers that we're seeing that are satisfied with the product, who have in reality become regulars with us. We see them continuously come back. That's the kind of thing that motivates us. It's really customers coming back and continuously selling that. What better a position to be in as a company than to have a base of customers that you don't need to advertise to. You don't need to pay advertisers, whether it's online or retailers, for free fills or whatever the case may be, when you know that these customers are coming back because they love you and they love your product. That's really what motivates us. As far as changes to the products, perhaps there'll be some changes to the format. What we're selling right now online is 30 serving formats, and that was specifically designed in order to increase the average order value, in order to mitigate the shipping cost, whether you're located in California or in Nova Scotia. And then the formats, we're definitely going to have some more formats that aren't offered online. So we will have a smaller format. It's a 15 serving format that's going to be strictly for retail. It won't be served online. And the reason for that is that, customers that go into the retail shop, barrier to entry and overall price point, not necessarily price point per serving, but the overall price point of the good that they're purchasing is a more important factor than for the online type of customer. And so being, conscious of that, we've chosen to reduce it by half. And of course, volume on the retail side is going to mitigate the shipping because we're shipping in bulk to these retailers.
Right. Okay, so you've opened the door to my next question. What kind of reception are you getting to date? Marketing efforts. I wanted to talk about your marketing efforts. So what kind of customer retention? Let's start there. What are you seeing for customer retention, and what ways are you specifically maybe that you can talk about that you're doing to try and grow your market share and penetrate that target market?
Sure. I mean, we can divide it into basically what are two different avenues. So you have the e-commerce side and you have the retail side. So the retail side, we're just in the midst of beginning. We're having, like I said, a variety of discussions with retailers throughout North America, with distributors, with brokers, and so on. We're in the midst of striking a few deals. But in the retail side, especially when we're talking about larger retailers, I'm not new to sort of doing business with these bigger companies, and these things tend to take a little while. So, it takes a while to approve a product. They want to see different strategies in play, which is fine. We're navigating that and should be listed shortly in a few household names. Now, on the e-commerce side, the one strategy that we have, it's really what we call our cold customer acquisition strategy, is to offer a tasty pack. And a tasty pack, taste TEA in the end, pun intended, is really what we project to throughout most of our ads online, whether it's on Facebook, Google. We're just about to launch a podcast marketing initiative, Pinterest, and so on. Is really that you can get all your flavors. We offer the tasty pack. It comes in 4 individual little sachets of each flavor. So 7 flavors is 28 servings with a frother, a tote bag. You get a couple stickers. It comes in a very nice branded box. You can check it out on our website, teonan.com. And that's really what we're seeing people are purchasing. And then you see them 2 weeks to 6 weeks later come back and purchase the product that they enjoyed, be it the coffee or the matcha or the hot chocolate, which happen to be our 3 highest sellers, by the way. And what we're seeing is that anywhere between 20 to 40% of those come back. Depends on the ad, depends on the month. And it's really a work in progress, and it's always evolving, which is why I can't pinpoint one specific number for you. But somewhere in that range, I'm comfortable of saying that we're seeing those metrics. And then essentially overall, it's difficult to say these days because we're increasing the budgets on the cold customer acquisition campaigns quite dramatically. Now, of course, what that means is that your returning customer base who come in and purchase the product regularly, well, their sales as compared to the new customers coming through the door, make up a much smaller proportion. But overall, what we're doing is driving more traffic to the website and converting more customers.
Mm-hmm. From the retail standpoint or the side of things, can you list maybe some potential companies that you think would make kind of an ideal retail partner, so people can get a sense of what type of retail partners would you be looking to target for your brand?
We'd be looking in the United States. We are looking at Sprouts, Albertsons, Wegmans, Kings. Then we look at some of the smaller regional chains. And when I say small, it's relative. We're talking, 20 to 40 stores, for example. A lot of those seem to be good locations for us. It's really more the natural / healthy, better for you type of grocery store. Whole Foods, of course, but that's a different game. I'd prefer not to have Whole Foods in our realm in the short term. I'd prefer going out to the Sprouts, the Albertsons, the Wegmans, and all of those guys, build our core, and then make our way into Whole Foods. And then in Canada, we're looking at Rochelle Berry, we're looking at well.ca. There's likewise Whole Foods in Canada, and Healthy Planet. There's a variety of other natural / healthy, better for you retailers out here. And yeah, I mean, those are the types of names that we want associated with the brand.
Okay. And do you have the relationships at the moment to kind of get your foot in the door to these places, or are you working with like distributors that would get you in?
We are working with distributors that would get us in. We do have a variety of relationships. Some agreements, have very recently been struck or about to happen with brokers and distributors, both in Canada and the United States. So, I expect that those initiatives should come together in the next few quarters. One thing I can tell you, though, in my experience is you'll plant a variety of seeds throughout distributors, brokers, and retailers that you're having conversations with. Now, you want to identify who are the best retailers for you. Who is it that would sell most of your product? Because, of course, if we list our product in Walmart as it stands, first of all, the price point is not attractive to a Walmart customer. So our product would do much better in a Whole Foods, a Sprouts, an Albertsons, this type of outlet.
Yeah.
And so what we're doing right now is basically planting little seeds everywhere. Now, I don't expect all of those seeds to come to fruition, but what's important and what I expect is that those that do heavily outweigh those that don't. And of course, that's just the nature of the business. Now, I mean, here I am going into sort of agricultural metaphor, but I think you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully those seeds sprout, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very, very confident that a variety of them will. I can tell you that they're all open ears. They've all recognized that the adaptogen and functional mushroom space and general functional beverage and food space is a category that's growing. Be it Whole Foods or Sprouts or Healthy Planet or whoever, they all recognize it. And when they see our brand and our products, they like what they see. And now it's just a matter of navigating the bureaucracy of corporate retailers, which, I'm familiar with and which we will get through. So it's just a matter of time before we have a few good accounts under our belt, let's say.
Okay. So shareholders always love catalysts. So by the sounds of it, Eric, there's quite a few irons in the fire here. And there's some, maybe potential deals to announce within, say, the next 6 months.
Sure. Yeah, I concur with that.
Okay. So just shortly after you went public in early May, your company announced a deal with Good Food on the private label side. So I wanted to talk about that. Maybe you could expand a little bit on, why that deal is important, why it's a big milestone for the company, and how that deal is going to work.
Sure. So it's sort of a two-pronged approach that I have with the Good Shroom Co. on the functional mushroom side of the business. So of course we're building a brand. That's ultimately what we're doing. But like I said earlier, this is a pie that's increasing. So it's not a matter of competing with your competitors for the same customers, though we do that and we win. However, since this pie is increasing and there's much more attention coming onto the functional food and functional beverage space, we're seeing a lot of companies try to introduce these products, try to introduce functional beverages. So our approach, since we already are in the space and we are already, we know what we're doing, is basically to supply these people, and hence the private labeling initiative that we have with the Good Food Market Corporation. So essentially, they want to offer a variety of functional beverages. We approached them to supply, and we struck a deal with them for 3 products. All 3 are functional. So a coffee, a matcha, and a golden milk latte. And we're going to be private labeling for them, or actually we have private label for them. We just fulfilled our first introductory order of matcha, landed at their warehouse last week. And we expect a couple more orders for mushroom coffee and a golden milk latte to come through in the next couple months or so. So that is really the second prong of our approach to conquer and really be the dominant company in the medium to long term in the functional beverage space, is not just to have a brand that is dominant in its own right, but to supply other brands with the product, because I don't see a problem with supplying competitors. I think that if we can be involved in the process, why not? I think there's a ton of people converting from their regular beverage to a functional beverage, and that number of people is only increasing as we move forward.
So you're basically turning, potential competitors into essentially strategic partners.
Absolutely. That's exactly what we're doing. Yeah. And I a lot of them, sometimes some of the conversations we have, they approach with caution. You guys have your own brand, this and that. Yeah, we do. But we also have economies of scale based on the amount of mushrooms that we purchase and the products that we have. And we have the know-how as well. And we tend to open up these conversations, and we see our first sort of milestone with the Good Food Market Corporation, and I truly believe that this will be the first of many.
Okay. Now the 3 drinks that you're supplying to Good Food, are they specific to Good Food? Were they kind of custom formulated, or they represent sort of part of the 7 that you're already selling on your own?
So they're kind of a derivative of our beverages. So, I mean, essentially, I spoke with the buyers at Good Food, and their demographic is slightly different than ours, though there are similarities. And so what I thought with them is, guys, how about you tell me more about your demographic, and we figure out together what that formula might look like. So, for example, in our beverages, we have no sugar. In the matcha and the golden milk latte, they preferred to have sugar. They said our customers prefer things a little bit sweeter, so we added sugar. So we kind of tailored it to really their demands. But we being the leaders in the space, obviously they're looking for our know-how and our experience in sort of formulating it. And they kind of didn't really know what they wanted, but they knew that they wanted to be in the functional beverage space. They knew that they wanted these beverages, and that's kind of the approach that we take. So a lot of companies are looking at this and saying, this is a market that's growing fast. There's something to be had here. How do we take part? And they look to people like us who are in it, know it, and are living it in order to take advice and to formulate those products.
Okay. So 2 questions then, Eric. How long did it take to, from the time you started talking to them to actually cementing that deal with Good Food? And are there any sort of deals in active negotiation with other potential Black Label partners at the current time?
Sure. It took me it took us about 6 months to ink the contract. And I can tell you that even before we had inked the contract, they had sent us die lines I had sent them die lines, and we had agreed to formulas and so on. So it was more of a sort of working relationship. And then, obviously we had to ink a contract. And so that was kind of let's say a byproduct of the overall relationship. There are other discussions occurring, none of which I would say are in negotiation as far as very detailed prices and formulations. I'd say that they're more inquiries, though I suspect that a few of them will turn into legitimate customers.
Okay. Are you finding, when you're talking to, whether it's private label or even on the retail side, the fact that you're able to supply them the data from the, direct to customer side, is that giving you that data that you have since, I guess, December 2019? Is that helping you land any of these clients? Like, do they want to see sales before they sign up?
Some of them, well, I mean, it's mostly in the form of questions. So, do you think that this would sell? Like, for example, with Good Food, they were asking a lot of questions about the golden milk latte, but it's turmeric and it's ginger, but why this and that and so on. So 100% the data helps. When we can back up what it is that we're saying with the cold hard facts that we're seeing on e-commerce, obviously that motivates them. They see that, and they don't just hear it from us. You got to keep in mind that we're not trying to sell something that is unknown, but rather something that is quickly growing, that they've heard from other sources, and then they just come straight to the source, which is obviously us, in order to get the products that they're looking for.
Okay. Well, let's switch maybe to the other division then. We haven't covered it yet. You talked about it obviously earlier, the Velada side of things. Maybe you can explain in a bit more detail, what you think the opportunity is here. Who are your main competitors? What does this all look like?
Absolutely. So Velada, like I mentioned before, let me refresh your memory, is essentially the formulas that we presently sell across North America under the Teonan brand, but further fortified as wellness beverages by adding a dose of CBD to one line of them and a dose of THC and CBD to the second line. So we're only going to be introducing, to begin, 4 flavors. So we're going to come out with a matcha, a hot chocolate, a coffee, and a golden milk latte. And that's going to be distributed first and foremost in our backyard with the SQDC, whom we're in very vivid discussions with as we speak. And that being our backyard, naturally, this is going to be our home turf. However, for the rest of Canada, we have struck a deal with a company called Velvet Management, who is the leader, one of the leaders, I should say, in cannabis products distribution in Canada. So they are originally from the alcohol industry. And if you're familiar at all with the Canadian cannabis industry, it's actually quite similar from a distribution perspective to alcohol. So it's regulated by the different provinces. And so naturally, they got into the cannabis sector and they're doing quite well at it. They're very excited about our product because there is not much that's like it on the market. And they believe that there is significant demand for a product like ours. So, that is basically a wellness beverage with a toned down level of THC when there is THC and a very potent dose of CBD. So there are a few competitors. We're seeing Every Tea. The Green Organic Dutchman has a product that's a little bit similar to ours, though there are vast differences. And the main point being that our product will be amongst the most potent from a CBD perspective. And from a price perspective is also going to be better. So we know one thing: due to the lack of marketing that's permitted for cannabis companies like us to do, one of the main factors when a customer is making a purchasing decision is essentially the price versus the cannabinoid content. So people have become smart. They're looking at this and they're saying, well, I'm paying X price for only 10 milligrams of CBD. That's no good. I'd prefer not even purchasing it at all. So what are we doing? We're reducing the price and we're increasing the level of CBD 3-fold in some cases and 2.5-fold when compared to some other competitors per serving in our beverage. So we believe that that is going to sort of harness a little bit of customer loyalty and some curiosity at first, as well as the fact that we have a dose of functional mushrooms likewise in those products. So you're getting a really well-rounded wellness beverage when you're purchasing our product, on top of it being a cannabis-based product. And then there's the THC line. Like I mentioned earlier, only 4.5 milligrams of THC per serving. That's not a huge dose. And we don't want it to be a huge dose. We want it to be a low dose. This appeals more to, let's say, the 25, or sorry, I'm thinking of the Teonan product, 35 to 65 range, typically female, though we're not discounting males. And this is the kids in bed, It's a Saturday night. I don't want a glass of wine. Let me have a tea and let me get a little bit of a kick out of it. Why not? I'm not harming anybody. And they're doing something good for themselves. There's absolutely no hangover. This is common in the cannabis industry, but nobody's really offering and tailoring the product to that wellness customer. And we know that there are wellness customers out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I brought up the competitive landscape. I grabbed this from your listing statement, by the way, and I showed it earlier when you're talking about Teonan. There was quite a few competitors out there. Obviously, on this side, on the Velada side, it's a lot less. How long of a window do you think you'll have before more competitors start to kind of inch their way in here?
Well, that's one of the important things. And I mean, it's a disadvantage when trying to get into the cannabis business in Canada. But once you're in, it's a huge advantage. So the barrier to entry is huge. It takes years to navigate. It costs a fortune to obtain. And so when we obtained our license in a little over a year ago as well, we came in knowing that there wouldn't be that much competition. Now, naturally, what that does is it keeps prices a little bit high. And I want to approach it really from not so much how much can we squeeze our customers, but what's going to drive volume for us? What is really going to make this brand into a household name? And the answer is offer it at a fair price and offer a good product with a potent dose of CBD and a decent dose of THC on the other line. And so I do believe that there will be more competitors that come in, but that doesn't worry me. In fact, if more competitors come in, it's only going to reinforce the company that we are, the brand that we are. And frankly, we can afford to reduce that price and sell it at a competitive rate. And the reason is that we're not growing any cannabis. We're not extracting any cannabis. We're a very lean and mean and efficient company. And we're very well managed from a financial perspective, from an executional perspective. And that allows us to offer a product that's fairly priced to the customer. And I know that from conversations with Velvet Management, our distributor, and the SQDC, the head buyer at the SQDC, that what they're looking for and what customers want is a better priced product and one that offers a little bit more. And so that's exactly where we're coming in.
Okay. So, compared to the price per servings here, I believe your price per serving will be somewhere around $5.50 to $6. So you'd be coming in under all three of these, correct? That's
correct. So $5.50 to $6 with a dose of functional mushrooms and a lot more CBD than what you're seeing on your screen. So the Haven Street and the Tea God products all have less CBD and they come in at a much higher price point and they have absolutely no mushrooms in there. So overall, better value for your dollar. But that being said, we're talking a lot about price per serving and CBD content. I don't want anybody to think that we're building a discount brand. That is absolutely not what we're building. I don't want to be associated to a discount brand, but discount is relative and luxury is relative when we're talking about the Canadian cannabis industry. This is like extreme luxury. This would be the equivalent of purchasing a Louis Vuitton handbag. Whereas the mass population is not purchasing LV handbags. They're going for something that's a little bit better priced, okay? We're that equivalent. We're offering something that's a little bit better priced, but there still is that aspect and that sort of feel of quality to what we're doing.
Okay. Now, can you give us any sense for where the company's at with respect to making that application to amend the sales license to the point where, you could actually start to sell? I know at timelines, when it comes to timelines, it's tough. You're dealing with government regulatory authorities. You never know. But are we looking at, say, short term versus, say, medium to long term?
I would say we're looking at short term to answer your question. So we submitted our amendments to begin selling about 6 or 7 months ago, and we're just coming to the tail end of it now. So we did our exit meeting with Health Canada a couple of weeks ago. We just received our detailed letter to which we're about to submit a response. So I think it's a matter of weeks, perhaps a couple of months. So certainly I'll commit to saying that we'll have it in the short term. And then once we have it, it's a matter of quickly manufacturing the product and enacting all of these initiatives that we have with the SQDC, with our distributors. And then it's just a matter of execution. It's a matter of how good is the management of the company. And trust me when I tell you that to execute, we will be selling this product across Canada.
Okay. Of the three sort of business divisions, Teonan, Velada, and sort of the private label side, which do you expect to be kind of the lead driver for revenue for the company? Or do you think it'll be relatively balanced?
I believe in the short term. Let's speak a bit hypothetically here. Let's say we begin selling cannabis products. From that moment that we've begun, I think that the lead brand from a revenue perspective is going to be Velada, so the cannabis side of the business. But I expect that the Teonan brand being sold across North America is going to quickly outpace Velada in the longer term. And then the private label initiative, I think we'll be in a close third to all of those things.
So from the Teonan standpoint, when it comes to where your focus is, would you say you're evenly focused on Canada and the US, or are you sort of leaning one side or the other?
I would say at present we're evenly focused, though I do expect that the retail initiative is going to outpace the Canadian retail initiative. So I think that the focus is probably going to shift more towards a 60-65% towards the US and the remainder in Canada. Naturally, the behemoth market of 350 or so million people south of Canada is going to take up a little bit more of our resources.
Absolutely. Okay. And would there be potential for you to look even outside of these two markets a little more globally once things are more established?
Absolutely. So I don't want to spread this company thin. I want to focus, build a brand, and really create a very solid foundation locally, that being in North America. But I do expect that in the longer term, whether it be distribution or licensing deals in very specific markets, for example, in France or in the UK, in Japan or in Australia, that we end up doing business internationally. I think that that's definitely a possibility for us in the long term.
Okay. I want to step back for a bit, maybe talk a little bit about strategy and vision. I think it's, important for investors to get a sense of where the company is, the direction the company is going. So I want to talk specifically about your vision, say in 1 year or even 3 years from now, where do you see this company going, and what kind of targets have you set for yourself and the team to hit this year that you would be, measuring your performance against? I guess I'm saying, what does success look like 1 year from now for you and the team?
I would answer that by basically saying that success for us in the 3 to 5 year term looks like a household brand name when it comes to the wellness type of household, and beyond that, and really having at least some metric to show that at least 50% of our customers are returning customers. And I say that because when you've got to that point, then you're basically compounding your company's new customers upon the old customers. So those profits just compound upon themselves. And then you have the flywheel principle, and you have motion and velocity in what you're doing, and the sky's the limit. So I would say that I'd like to be in at least 10,000 retail shops in North America by year 3 to 5. And I would like us to have some international presence. I would also like, I think a great milestone would be to have a certain level of sales and brand recognition on the Velada side. And those are essentially let's say, that's not 3 to 5 years, isn't the short term. Let's call it the medium term sort of milestones and trajectory for the company.
Okay. I did want to quickly bring up the revenue that you've seen to date. And I know, you were very clear earlier, Eric, that the version 1.0, if we can call it that, of Teonan was a work in progress. You were putting it out there, trying to get feedback from your customer base to improve it. And that version 2.0, didn't start until February. We do have some numbers. I grabbed these again off your listing statement. I actually think, in your first 7 months of operation, would have started December 2019, and to the end of your fiscal year, you still managed to pull in $200,000 in revenue for, to me, for a company where, the beverage is still in sort of a state of flux. I actually think that's pretty good, and pretty solid gross margin.
Thank you. I mean, I appreciate that. I would respectfully kind of disagree. I don't think it's great, though. You have to understand that considering that this was really the version 1.0 of our product, and our goal was not make as much money in sales as possible. Obviously, in the process, we're trying to drive as many sales, but what it was gather as much feedback as possible and then make those changes and launch that second version of the brand. That's exactly what we did. We told ourselves we would go 1 year with the product, And then we would make the changes based on the feedback that we get. And that's exactly what we did. Now, that 200,000 in revenue, keep in mind, this is from launch. So, you're definitely kind of right, Sean. Launching a beverage online is not something that's easy to do. It's difficult to get traction. It's difficult to find the right customer base. It's difficult to find out who's going to be the person purchasing your product, but we're on the ball. Like, we keep good management of what's going on from an advertising standpoint. What's selling? We make sure that the product is there, that we have good customer service. And that's what really drove that initial, I tend to call it an initial success, though it's a small number of 200,000, because that's what really gave us the headway and the knowledge to transfer this into something that we can then really push in retailers into retail and see those good numbers come through in the medium to long term.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I guess when I'm saying I thought it was pretty good, I'm comparing it to a couple other companies. I won't mention their names that I'm familiar with that, they've been sort of in the process of manipulating their formula per se. And I don't think they came anywhere close to that. So I actually thought that was pretty good for, starting out fresh and really not having the formula locked down kind of in that period of transition. So so the next financials for the company, people would see Q3 data, which would be February, March, and April of this year. That would be at the end of June. That would be kind of the first 3 months of version 2.0. And then I guess would be your fiscal year end. At the end of July, we'd be seeing that in the fall. That might give maybe investors a better sense of trajectory at that point. Do you think that's fair?
Yeah, I think that's a fair assumption. What I would say to that, John, and what I would say to any investors that are listening, is that the first 12 months that you're seeing, so that number that you just mentioned of 200,000, so that is indeed the first 12 months. But keep in mind that is actually 6 months of actual operation in our fiscal year. So we launched in December and ended July 31st. So you're looking at about 6 months there where we derived $200,000 in revenue.
Yeah.
Then in February of this year, we launched our other product. But you got to keep in mind that transition is not something that happens overnight. You don't just snap your fingers and all of a sudden you stop your old products and you start your new products. No. I mean, we had a certain level of inventory products. So, we were selling our inventory, selling. And then at a certain point, I had to pull the trigger and say, okay, that's enough. We stop here and we begin the new products. That occurred in February. And then when you launch the new product, though we have north of 12,000 existing customers that we market to via email, hey, the new version of the brand, better value, all the mushrooms, etc., and they're coming in and they're purchasing the product, our strategy is cold customer acquisition, which with a new brand and a new product takes time to sort of put together. So we're in the process of slowly launching that. And when I say slowly, I want to caution people. It's more being intelligent about the way you go about it instead of just dropping these massive budgets and you end up seeing peanuts versus what you're investing. So what we want to do, and we're in the process of doing, it's been long enough now, we like the metrics that we see online. We're about to start increasing those budgets in order to get much more e-commerce revenue in. And like I mentioned to you earlier, we're just starting with the retail initiative. So this fiscal year ending July 31st, we may clock in a little bit over what you're seeing there. But I would just caution that that's not a real representation of what a year actually is, because there was the transition, which took quite a while, one product to the next, etc. So next year, likely we'll be selling cannabis products. Likely we'll have some retail initiatives that begin to, let's say, bear fruits, and that e-commerce is also going to increase. So I would say judge us on the end of year, but understand what it is that you're looking at.
Yeah, of course. I wanted to switch over to the capital market side of things. So I believe you closed your qualifying transaction in mid-April. You listed your first day of trading, I believe, was April 28th. So congratulations on going public, which is obviously exciting. You were able to raise, I believe, almost 2.9 million at 25 cents. Can you talk about, was that raise oversubscribed? And maybe can you talk about the nature of the investors that came in? Did you have sort of good broker participation, stuff like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So it didn't take us too long to raise the 2.5 million. So we set out to raise concurrent with the RTO. Was of course a condition to the actual transaction occurring. to raise between 1.5 and 2.5 million. Now, the reason for that number is because based on our projections and the things that we wanted to do, build inventory, advertise, all of those things, we thought that 1.5 to 2.5 was much more than a healthy budget than necessary in order to take us to the next level. And so, we began basically telling people about the company as a company would pitch to any investor out there. And what we found is that there was a lot of interest in what we were doing. And we managed to oversubscribe to the maximum of 2.875. So we weren't allowed to oversubscribe by more than 15%, which is how we got to 2.875 from 2.5 million. And I would say that really what interested investors, and that is brokers, institutions, and individuals alike. So, we have a pretty wide variety of investments from, all natures, from coast to coast, that are really interested in the space, is because of the high growth potential, but mostly because they're looking at what other companies are doing out there. So to your point a little bit earlier about the revenue, there's a lot of companies out there saying they're going to sell cannabis or functional mushroom beverages or functional mushroom teas, or they're going to get into this space. It's a high growth space, this and that. And I can tell you from experience that saying you're going to do these things and doing them are two very different things. And I think that investors recognized these guys are doing it. This is a company that is on the forefront of the market and has the potential to disrupt the entire industry. And I think that that's why they came in. We likewise offered a full warrant at 50 cents, good for 24 months, which of course motivated our investors. So there is some liquidity that's going to come into the stock sometime in June.
June 11th.
June 11th, that's correct. So if I'm not mistaken, it is June 11th. And so that should be a good motivating factor for a variety of investors to get in now, while we're still young, while we're still sort of ahead, but not too much light is on us because we haven't actually executed on the variety of initiatives that we're currently undergoing.
Yeah, so here's your share price chart since the beginning. Might not be clear to everyone. That's the first trading day there. So, it's kind of settled around essentially 25 cents, which was your financing price. But as you're saying, Eric, June 11th, those shares will be unlocked. And I think liquidity has been a little bit of an issue. But, if people are looking for a position of size, you can potentially see some share supply hit the market in mid-June and then take advantage of that if you like what you're hearing today.
Absolutely.
So why did you feel that now was the right time to go public versus say, 6 months to a year from now?
It was a very difficult decision on my behalf. Essentially, I to be honest with you, I don't come from the capital markets. I'm the initiatives that I've undergone and the businesses that I've built and succeeded in to a certain degree were always private. And so I approached this from a private sector sort of initiative. And then I was approached by somebody who knew the CPC that we did the deal with. And at first my reaction was, I'm not so sure this is the right moment, et cetera. Then I began to study the valuations on the market and who our competitors would be. And what I found is that if we continue to execute on what we're doing now, we're actually doing a lot more than some of these companies, and they're valued at outrageous prices. So in theory, if we continue to execute, I think that there's a very favorable place for investors in investing in this company. And that's why I did it. I thought that, we would be able to be very good at what we do. We'd be able to disrupt the market in the beverage industry. And I think people would take notice, and that would be reflected in our valuation. That's really the motivation behind taking this company public.
Okay. Are there any actual publicly traded competitors that are close? I know there's probably not anyone doing exactly what you're doing, but is there anyone that you could direct somebody to say, compare, your valuation, 25 cents a share, you're about 50 million shares outstanding. So you're about 12.5 million cap, but any public companies that you can mention people can look to for comparative valuation purposes?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll let them judge the level of competition for themselves. But I would say Ritual Superfoods is certainly somebody to keep an eye on, or as a comparable to ourselves. So there are a few companies, and keep in mind that these are companies that are trying to sell functional mushroom beverages. I don't know their level of sales, if any. So I say comparable in that degree. I don't know of any other companies that are public selling these this type of product, and none of them have a cannabis license and are going to execute on the functional mushroom and cannabis beverage that we're going to be offering nationwide in Canada.
Okay. Largest use of proceeds from the funds you raise, would that be going to marketing, I'm assuming?
Yeah, that would be marketing, and we're keeping. I mean, a large portion of it is going to be basically to build inventory in order to execute on some of these larger retailers that we're having discussions with now.
Okay, so that brings up a great question. So if you were to, say in 2 weeks from now, sign a big deal with a retail store or a private label, whatever it is, a big catalyst for the company, how long would it be for you to, from the time that deal is inked to the time that you would be able to, ship product to that partner, whether a retail store or black label? And do you have the capital means to actually go about and do that, or would you have to go back to the market?
So I would say it depends on the size of the deal and the size of the retailer. But hypothetically, if we're taking a fairly big retailer in the United States, for example, it may take us from the time we ink that contract or that distribution deal, I'd say 3 to 6 months, perhaps 7 months before we ship our first order. And then it's just a matter of business. So, they sell more product, they order more. We have our merchandisers in various places of the United States at that time to make sure that it's on the right retail shelf, to make sure that the product has visibility, et cetera. And then we have people, of course, managing those accounts. So then it's just a matter of, keeping the motion and the wheels in turn with those specific retailers. I would say that if we were to strike a deal with a variety of the medium to larger size retailers across Canada and the United States, and a very significant retailer in the United States, it's very likely that we need to hit the market and hit the road again, basically to raise more funds in order to be able to fulfill that type of PO. But that's not something that worries me too much, because if we're raising cash based on the PO that we have and we need to fulfill, it's a good position to be in, and really is the only reason that we may hit the market again for a further raise.
Yeah, I mean, if you land a deal with Costco, you shouldn't have too much problem raising money, another round of money, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And, we're, like I said earlier, we've planted and we continue to plant a variety of seeds. I don't expect all of them to come to fruition, but I do expect that a variety of them will, and those that do are going to vastly outweigh the cost of having planted all of those seeds. And that's just a matter of good business.
Okay. A question every investor wants to know: how am I going to make money? How would you answer that question? What is going to be the primary value driver, to appreciate the share price over the coming months? How would you answer that?
I would say it's a variety of things. I mean, you got to look at, and one thing I've learned is that you could be, cash flow positive. You can have a variety of accounts, and you're still subject to volatility in the market, to liquidity in the market, to all of those things. So set aside that potential volatility and market liquidity and all of those factors that are out of our control. Where an investor would make money and where an investor would gain is, of course, just in the matter of execution of this company. So we're not going to get one account and then go on vacation. No, we're hard at work. We have a solid team. We're very motivated. We're going to continue progressing, and we will not stop until this becomes a household brand, at least on the Teonan side. And when we've conquered our territories in the retailers that we think are the best fit for us in North America, then we'll begin to look abroad, and the sky's the limit for us. That's really where I would say an investor is going to make money. It's sort of get in now while we're only trading at 25 or 50 or 75 cents, regardless of that price, because we will continue to progress in this company into the future.
Okay. I mean, we've been talking for a while here, Eric, but I really thought it was important to give you a chance to talk about yourself. Obviously, good management is important to the success of any business. This is your first foray in the public as a public company executive, but it's not your first rodeo. When it comes to actually running a company, you've been active on the private side. So can you maybe give viewers a background on yourself, some of your previous experience, and why that experience is going to prove valuable to bringing success to the Good Shroom Co on the public side of things?
Absolutely. So indeed, it is my first venture onto public markets. So I can't say that I have any public markets experience as a director or as a CEO of a public company, which is why I've brought on two guys with solid directorship experience on boards. So Steve Saviuk and Claude Dufresne, who are two board members, to help me sort of navigate and understand what are the aspects of being the director and CEO of a publicly traded company, and make sure that I'm doing those correctly. And I intend on learning, and I really don't see a problem with it. It's certainly a challenge, but that's fine. Nothing I can't overcome. I would say that indeed, it's definitely not my first rodeo in business generally. So I come from a logistics background. I grew a 3PL company from 28,000 square feet to north of 300,000 square feet. And anybody who's familiar with the warehousing and distribution industry knows that it can be cutthroat, and you have to be efficient. You have to be a decent, or at least a very decent manager in order to succeed. And that I did. I also know distribution of food and pharmaceutical products generally from my experience with the warehousing company. And I also have international food distribution experience. So I built with my Mongolian business partner a company in Asia that distributed dried fruits and nuts in two different brands, so Hasaji brand and Like brand. And we sold that company. And so here I am today, having taken the knowledge that I know of food distribution, logistics, warehousing, and general good business management, and how to execute on all of those things and really take something to the next level. And I'm trying to apply it now to basically Teonan and Velada. So from a distribution perspective, it's not all that different. The only difference is, in reality, there's much more potential in the Teonan brand and in the Velada brand than there was in the previous things that I did. And that's the reason I'm here today and not over there. So it is a very high growth industry with a lot of international potential. And that's really why I'm here. It's to execute again like I've done in the past. And I'm more motivated than I've ever been. So one thing that an investor can definitely bank on is the fact that this company is going to be and continue to be well managed, and that we're going to continue to execute on the initiatives that we have.
Okay. Well, you've got your pitch down great. I mean, you sound very confident. You sound excited. Those are all, really good things to see in a CEO.
Thank you, John.
Should investors want more information, who should they be reaching out to for more information? Should they reach out to you directly, or do you have investor relations? How should they go about getting that?
They're welcome to reach out to me directly. I'm more than happy to have a conversation with any investor that has any particular questions or simply wishes to get to know me. That's more than a welcome discussion. But if it's more of a general question or to get a feel for the way that we operate, I'd say send an email to info@thegoodshrooom.co. That's thegoodshrooom.co. And our PR/IR person, Renata, who happens to be our content editor and writes all of our blogs and does a little research for us, is going to be happy to answer. And if it's anything that's out of her scope, she'll send it to myself or one of my colleagues, depending on what the question is.
Okay. So I can put that email address in the video description then. So, well, it's been, really good to meet you, Eric, to talk about the company. Again, congratulations on going public, and I obviously wish you a lot of success. Any closing remarks that you'd like to leave with people before we shut it down?
Just keep an eye on us. Take a look at what we're doing. Log on to our website, order our product. You'll see the product, what it is that people are liking. Go online, read the comments. Read the reviews. That is going to tell you more than any pitch from any CEO in the industry. You got to look at what the customers are saying. And that should help you understand that this is a company that's going somewhere. And I hope that you guys recognize that.
Okay. Well, there you go, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the interview. And Eric, I'll certainly be keeping an eye on the stock and the news. And again, good luck with everything.
Sounds good. Thanks for your time, John. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers.